Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I am your host, Big Baba Rob. I'm the host of the Black Geeks. I am joined by an illustrious group of individuals today. This is the first. We're trying to hold what we're calling a Blerd Town Hall because we've seen a lot of the events that have gone on, and we want to talk about some of them. But because we're the Black Geeks, we're talking about them from a kind of techie, geeky point of view. And we wanted to throw it out and have a lot of geeks online and discuss some of these things. But I tell you, I've got a great group, ladies and gentlemen. I've got all the Black Geeks with me. I've got my Sith Lord Darth Euconius. I've got the Potbelly Samurai. I've got his illustrious King Face. But our special guest, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so impressed. I've got with me Big Swivel's also with us. He's going to be giving in-depth commentary and knowledge. We've got CJ from the Three Black Geeks, and ladies and gentlemen, we do have the queen of the Twitterverse. We do have Jamie from Black Girl Nerds. Ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing this evening?
Great to be here. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for inviting.
Super. So for all of you guys who are following along and you're going to be
here.
we're glad to have you, homeboy. We're glad to have you. For everyone who is going to be live tweeting this, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. If you're going to be live tweeting it, if you choose to, if you would use hashtag #BlerdTownHall, that way we can track and trend your comments, and we'll try to bring some of those to you as we go through the conversation. Again, I'm Big Baba Rob. I'm your host, and I want to start off with my very first question, and I want to kick this first to Jamie from Black Girl Nerds. I want to first talk about what we've seen happen on Twitter in the last several weeks, and granted, there's been a lot of it. There's been a lot. Yeah, I mean, we can go back really far with the Save Our Girls movement, and I mean, Bring Our Girls Back. I'm sorry. There have been so much where Twitter has caused movements in the Arab Spring. I mean, there's just a lot. But just based upon what we've seen in social media of late, what struck you the most about the role that social media has played, or what have you seen in social media that really kind of hit you, that like, wow, this is a significant role social media is playing in this movement?
I think Ferguson was a game changer. I think it was a game changer for all of us because it was the first story that broke and social media got wind of it, and it evolved so much that this story eventually transcended over to mainstream media and became this huge movement. And the movement started at a grassroots level using Twitter. So I remember that night when it happened and seeing folks on Twitter talking about what happened to Mike Brown, seeing folks there in Ferguson, at the front lines, tweeting about it. And I thought it was very interesting that, within the last couple of weeks when we found out what the decision of the indictment verdict was, that they downplayed social media, that they devalued the relevancy of social media with respect to this case. And if it were not for social media, I don't even think the Mike Brown case would have gotten any kind of legs. I really don't, and it's sad that is a fact, because what happened to him has happened to many black men and women, over the course of several decades. So,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think social media, period, has kind of brought to light a lot of the injustices that we as black people have gotten over the years. I think, I don't know, it's weird because, like Jamie said, if we didn't have social media, I think a lot of stuff would have got swept under the rug. Like, oh, another black person got shot. Oh, well, 2 days later, nobody would have really cared, or you probably would have cared, but it would just been like, oh, whatever, fine. I mean, I think a little of that kind of happened with Trayvon, just a little bit to me. That's just my personal opinion.
Right,
but
you're right.
I think this was just kind of like, well, damn, like this happened, and then what made it even worse. What made it even worse, I felt like after the Darren Wilson thing, I thought that was going to be like Trayvon, where after a week, like, oh, well, Black Friday hit, nobody's going to care. But then 2 days later, this dude choked out a black dude and he gets off free. And I think that's what really kind of put people over, like, okay, this is a little messed up. Like, you even had people, some of the people that, even white people, there are white people that, I'm not going to say they're not fond of black people, but they were even looking at that case like, that's kind of messed up. Like, he should have been convicted, like, and it shocked me because I was like, all right, it ain't just us, so it's like, all right, okay.
Yeah, and what's interesting just to that point is that social media is also you see other countries now. I mean, you see now on the other side of the planet holding signs up, "I can't breathe," and I think that's pretty significant as well. Big
And
Swivel, what about you, man? Looking on social media, what kind of struck you about the role social media played in getting the message out about these movements?
Well, I mean, I've just been really struck in terms of how people have actually come together, like you all are saying, getting the message out. The thing that really has struck me the most, though, is how this is kind of picked up worldwide and how it's gained steam. I mean, you have people sharing their sentiments, sharing their thoughts. I mean, we even saw how, people from Gaza were sharing information with the protesters of how to survive, the tear gas and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was really interesting. I just hope that this really all begins to come to a head in terms of a really, really powerful social movement that will enact change. I mean, I think the spark has definitely been lit. And, with Twitter, since there's no real moderator, I mean, everything has kind of kept going. It's just been picking up and gaining more steam.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we're hoping. I mean, I think that a lot of people who are on the ground are hoping that there are people back there supporting it. What about you, Potbelly Samurai? You're also very active on Twitter as well. What are some of the things that you saw and that struck you? Seeing social media playing a role in this movement. Potbelly, I guess you have a little bit of a lag, sir. The question was addressed
Eh,
at you.
Well, sorry about that. I guess I do. My apologies. Um, One of the things that has really struck me about social media is the fact that it's uh, really pushed a national and international debate on policing and the militarization of the police, but it's placed it within a context that's being absorbed across racial lines. When you take a look at the protesters, both in New York, both in Ferguson, and in Cleveland, you're looking at multiracial, multi-ethnic, uh, in multiple age groups all being represented here because the level of unfairness and bias has come out in a way that is hard to ignore. And, people are coming out into the streets and they're literally voting their conscience, and it's starting to move beyond race as far as the representation. And I don't think that would have been possible without social media and the vivid imagery that's put forward that's really hard to deny.
Right, and I think that's the big thing, and that's we're going to try to talk about that when I get to the question about the mainstream media's role, because I think the imagery is what is key here, and I think that that's what social media has really done. Just aside from getting the word out quickly, that the imagery we're getting to see the images that we were locked out of previously, or maybe not shown. And I've got a question coming up also about what our role is, but I think I'm gonna ask that question right now. Let me ask King Face. King Face, there's a lot of talk about technology, and that there's this big push now for um, personal body cameras, or the body cameras for the police officers. you know, Technology, we're making leaps in advance, is just, day after day, month after month. But, looking at this case, and especially when you look at it framed in the case of Eric Gardner, you know, is technology really the answer to personal policing, or really does it fall back on us as a community to be vigilant? And is it really on us now to record the facts where, maybe personal body cameras don't come into play?
I think it's a combination of both. I think we still got to be held responsible for ourselves. And I think those personal policing is only going to go so far, because we've already seen that you can't just rely on one source to take care of all our problems. I think we still got to be vigilant. I think it's a step in the right direction, but you still have, that's going to be a new thing. And like with any new piece of technology or any new rules, you're going to have a filling out process. And the last thing you want to do is have a filling out process when somebody else gets shot. And then it's like, well, I know he got shot, but we was kind of still working on the camera, so it kind of blacked out for the last 2 minutes. You don't want that. So you're still going to have those things. And I think we still need to be vigilant. And I think as long as we, as our people, continue to understand what's going on and actually doing, like, being loud about it and being having discussions like this will be good moving forward. But it's still going to take us to be vigilant. We still got to do more.
Let me go to our chief technology officer, Darth Kikonius. Let me ask you. I mean, you're always reporting about technology through your feed, and there are always advances, and you're putting a lot of that stuff out in the forefront for Blerds and Geeks to see. Is technology the answer here? Are there technological answers to policing of the police, or is it really on us?
Well, some people have been questioning that, especially in light of the Eric Gardner situation, because this is a situation where the actual, incident was fully recorded, and still there was no indictment. However, one has to wonder, if there wasn't a recording, would we even be discussing this, or would this just be another brother who was choked out and killed? So I personally am a fan of it. It's one of the things that Mike Brown's mother called for. It's another thing that President Obama decided that he would allocate funds toward police body cameras. Because at the end of the day, I believe that you need to have those things in place, if nothing else, to have a recording and be able to do these things and be able to evaluate them from a distance.
You know what's crazy though?
What's that?
About that dude getting choked out. I actually remember seeing that video on Facebook for a good solid month and a half. And it was funny too, because I'm sitting up there like, is this real? Did this just happen? And then this happened. I'm like, oh, so that actually was real. Cause I remember initially watching it is this fake? Is this actually happening? And then the story started coming out. I was like, okay, this happened. And I'm like, I assumed that maybe the cop got suspended, and then sure enough, this week it's oh, so it actually didn't go to trial, and he did go to trial, and he got off. Okay, and I mean, honestly, at this point, you would literally need Jesus Christ to come down to help you out in order to actually convict this dude. That's pretty much what I got out of it, honestly, because if you can't get video recording of somebody doing wrong, I mean, I understand where Obama's coming from with, hey, we gotta get cameras on him, but it's it ain't gonna help us in the long run. I mean, it will help, but it's what's to say that it's gonna really benefit in the long run? That's right. What I really kind of take out of it and stuff. It's a vigilant effort, but it's I don't really buy into whether it's gonna actually work or not. So.
Right, because the truth behind all of this is really it's not so much about the technology at this point, or following along or whatever is tracking them or they're seeing. It really comes down to the system, and that's what people are out in the streets now about. People are out in the streets because the system is broken and they want the system to change. So regardless of any of the technology we put out there, it really is going to come down to the movement that is happening right now, taking hold and moving forward. And I want to ask this question to Jamie of Black Girl Nerds. I want to talk about hashtag activism, because we've seen it. This, I feel, and I'm saying this because I want to be positive about it. I think that the hashtags that we have now are really pushing people. Oh, look, someone's got noise. Somebody. I don't know, and I don't think I want to know. But
sorry, guys, that was me.
Yeah, that's okay. But I want to talk about how can hashtags are now playing a role, because people can now follow along a thread, Jamie, and they can stay informed about things. But how can hashtag activism be sustained in the long run and not just be a flash in the pan like we've seen others?
I think just being diligent and consistent with it. You don't let a hashtag just trend on Twitter for a day and then forget about it. I think we have to just remain diligent in our efforts when we're, supporting a cause. I think you can also use your own web spaces to continue the conversation. So like what you're doing now with this town hall, which is brilliant. This is excellent to have these kind of conversations. To do it by an extension of doing a podcast show about it. Using our own blogs as a means to continue the conversation. Because really, Twitter, when you think about it, yes, it's really mobilizing us in so many different ways, and it's a really innovative way to allow marginalized voices, especially marginalized voices of color, to have sort of a way to amplify our message. But we don't really own the content on Twitter. So if Twitter were to shut down tomorrow, then what would we do? So it's our responsibility as content creators, especially, to continue that dialogue in other spaces, and to do that concurrently with what we're already doing with hashtag activism on Twitter.
No, and that's an excellent point. We think we become so reliant on the technology. How do we continue outside of the technological realm? I mean, you're right. If Twitter does go down tomorrow, which I think would send half the world into chaos if that happened.
Yeah, that would suck for me.
I mean, you would have a lot more free time if that happened. I'm just saying.
That's true. Good point. Good point there.
And then maybe that's what we do is the Twitter goes down, then everyone can go out in the streets and actually participate and start just chatting about it.
I can go outside in the air and see trees and grass and sunlight. Oh, wow, this is a new phenomenon.
God forbid some sun hits you on the butt. Have mercy. That would be something.
Need that vitamin D. Need that vitamin D.
Absolutely. Big Swivel, I'm kind of the same question to you. We see the hashtag activism is a way for people to follow on, but outside of the hashtag activism, how in this now new modern age, how do we get people to get involved and to stay connected to these types of movements? Twitter's just a tool, but to Jamie's point, at some point Twitter may go down. What do we need to do as a community of people to continue to be plugged into this process?
Well, I think that definitely having Twitter and these hashtags is really good. It's a good way to make people be informed. It's a good way to educate and to be organized. I mean, I was at a brunch for a friend this morning, and they were talking about how they totally planned a march here in Atlanta on the 17th Street Bridge using Twitter and a lot of different social media spaces. I think again that it's kind of the spark that can get things going. I think it's a good way to disseminate a lot of good information about what's going on. But I mean, in terms of, how are we going to make it jump to the next level? I agree. We do need to have, physical, I guess, non-virtual social media activism. We need boots on the ground, so to speak. But again, I think it's one of those things where the social media can actually be the catalyst to making folks want to get involved.
And that's a good point. I think that a lot of people use the hashtag not only to stay connected to each other, but maybe even they're like, hey, are you following this? Are you coming out? And actually getting people to participate as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kick this also to a good, the Potbelly Samurai. Activism is a very important part, and we're entering into an era where people tend to be less active and less involved. Is social media that catalyst that is going to make people, we feel connected as a world now, and we're seeing the movements. Is social media that tool, and what other tools do we need to create outside of that?
Honestly, I think social media can serve as a catalyst, but the movement won't actually catch fire until people stop being comfortable. It's going to take really strong actions in the public space, not in the technical space, but in the public space. When you look at like the Arab Spring, for instance, things really sparked off in Tunisia when a gentleman who was literally at the bottom of his wits end, he set himself on fire on the courthouse steps, and that sparked a mass movement because it brought so much attention to the plight of whole sections of the population who were struggling within and at the fringes of society. And we're going to have to stop being comfortable. We're going to have to get to the point collectively when we say, you know what, I'm going to forego shopping so that I can make an economic impact and force change. I am going to choose to take on employment that supports social causes. I'm going to forego this vacation or forego this trip and put that money into supporting causes and supporting movements that are actually putting forward positive social change. You look at someone like Muhammad Ali, who was an icon. Muhammad Ali basically said, what does all of this wealth and success gain me if my people still aren't free, and until that mind state is adopted, generally we'll have a spark with no bang.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. Um, and Geekonius and I were talking about that a while back, about that spark. And that you've got the spark, and this that you've got somebody that now they need to just get the flame and run with it like the Olympic torch and run around the entire world with it. Because like you've got the beginning, but we need sustainability over time. Geekonius, I want to ask you, is with Twitter and social media being so integral to the lives of our young people today who spend umpteen hours on Twitter and social media, or just texting in general, is social media that tool to get the young people engaged in this kind of movement?
I think it's quite apparent based on what we're seeing right now. Twitter and Facebook is basically the way we get our news now. I mean, you see actual established news agencies. They quote Twitter. They see what's trending and things of that nature. But the word is getting out through these formats. As we mentioned, hashtag activism earlier. So I think this is definitely the medium to do it. The issue and the concern I have is, where do we go from here? Is it just going to be something that we protest now? I was talking to a good friend this morning, who, she said she's, a veteran of several movements. She's back from the Black Panther days and different things. And she said one of the things that we have to remember is that movements are about a lifestyle. This isn't something that we're just going to be able to change the system in one shot. We're going to have to go through a process of coming up with action plans and doing things, and understanding that our life also doesn't revolve around activism 24/7. We still have to do things. She was talking about Nina Simone, Mississippi Goddamn. She was just talking about the system, but you also can still live a normal life and understand that you got to be in this for the long haul. But getting the message out for gathering, the die-ins, the protests, this was all social media. So I think it's a great era that we live in to get the message out, and I think we should continue to use it.
CJ, do you think that the young people are ready to sacrifice? Do you think that the young people, and when I say young people, I'm saying, let's take it, 21 to 30. Do you think the young people are ready to put the work in and sacrifice to make that change?
I think it's 50-50 on that. I think you'll have some that actually are serious about it. I think you'll have some who are aware of it, but they're going to continue doing, like, yeah, you can still have some other people that will hear about it, but they're just going to speak on it, but they're not going to live that lifestyle, But I also feel it's also to the next generation, our generation and the younger benefit to the fact that we're going to be the ones that at some point we're going to be running the country in some capacity, and you're not going to see that much maybe inequality. You're not going to see that much racism. I mean, racism is going to be there. To me, I think racism is going to be there. It just depends on how much of it is there. I think was it Chris Rock recently sat there and said, well, white people aren't as racist now as opposed to before, which I think it is, which is true, because I think it's a little bit of a generational gap and stuff, where a lot of the old guard isn't around anymore. They're dying off, and you got us on the come up, and we're just like, hey, we're not racist. I mean, like I said, there are some, but they're still going to be around. That's going to be the thing. But for the 21 and 30 crowd, I think, like I said, 50-50 on that. I think some will do it. I mean, we're seeing it now. I mean, hell, I never expected, after the Mike Brown thing happening, I never would have expected all of a sudden the following day them shutting down 395. That morning. Never expected that. Yeah. That shocked me. Like like any other time you hear about, oh, they're marching in D.C. Okay, whatever. Days go, but it's everything goes good. But then like I go to work, I take the train, but it wasn't until I got into work and stuff, somebody was like, yeah, they protest on 395. It's backed up. I'm like, what? And boom, Mike Brown. So I was like, wow, I'm shocked they actually organized it that quick. So I mean, there's hope. I mean, they will put the sacrifice in, but hopefully it's something that stays consistent week in and week out. If this is something that they, from here until, say, January, February, March, if this goes all the way into next year and they keep doing these protests, that would actually be pretty nice. that would be very shocking if they keep doing that. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want and same question to Big Swivel, because in your interactions with the upcoming, the next generation who are going to be the future leaders of this country and of this movement, are you seeing are you seeing in your walk of life, are you seeing young people energized by through social media and through these movements and through the imagery? Do you see young people getting energized and organized
I
for this
say,
movement?
yeah, absolutely, positively, yes. And I take a different approach. I mean, having worked with a lot of young people, having, young nieces and nephews and things like that, I just got to say this. I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised. I mean, I always held out hope that the next generation, coming along after us would be able to be plugged into social movements. It's just, I don't think that they really had anything that they could actually, prove themselves on until this particular series of events. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely there. I mean, if you look at it, you talk about how younger people have a lot of things, but one of the other things that they don't have is a lot of the golden handcuffs that older people don't. I mean, so really they per se don't have as much to lose through struggling and being part of movements and things like that. So I definitely think that young people are really going to be our hope. I think that they will take on a lot of these new movements. I want to see it continue in the future. But yeah, I mean, overall, I've been really, really impressed. The way that they've utilized social media for a lot of trifling things, they've used it for, in this case, a lot of very positive things. So I've really been proud. I mean, I told my nephew the other day how proud of him I was, for some of the things that him and his friends were doing.
Yeah, and that's good that I think we have to continue to encourage them and make sure that any opportunities we have to influence young people, to remind them that the things that you do now are the future, and you've got to invest in them, especially when you're not carrying nearly as much risk as I am, to go out there,
Right.
and that not that I want to put it on their backs, because it's our job as that middle age group, and I know that we're all age ranges on this, but we have to provide that guidance and that support and be shoulder to shoulder with them.
I think one of the things too you got to kind of keep in mind, at least from this perspective, that activism is going to look different from a younger perspective than it did from someone who was marching with King and was part of the civil rights movement at that time. Activism right now is going to look different, so we have to both encourage young people, celebrate them, but also meet them where they are, and the steps that they are taking. And social media has been a huge part of how young people now express themselves, and that's really coming into fruition. They can, and I'm kind of including myself in that regard, and everyone here at the table can organize more efficiently and faster than I think at any other point in history. I mean, you're talking about a movement that started from one action in Ferguson that's literally gone around the world and back again in a matter of days and weeks. So just imagine the power that's just right there.
Can I jump in really quick? And
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm tweeting this as we're having this discussion, and I see a few tweets, one in particular from Leslie Mack on Twitter. She's a friend of the Black Girl Nerds podcast, listens in all the time. She's got some concerns about the conversation. First, about the question about young people being involved, and she feels that young people are very much involved. But her biggest question is who on the panel is involved in the movement, or who has been involved. So her concerns are folks in the Blerd and Geek communities being involved with the movements that's happening. I will say myself, I'm not on the ground per se, but I'm definitely involved with social media hacktivism and using hashtags, and also reporting it on my website. One of the things that I talked about on my website was the Darian Hunt incident. And this was right after it broke. I think it was like early September. Yeah. And I remember someone tweeting to me about a black cosplayer got shot, and I was very interested to see what was going on with this particular story. So I did some research. I looked at various articles on the web. It had just happened, so there wasn't that much content out there. But I was able to assimilate enough information to write a feature about it. And when I did that, I got a lot of criticism. I had a lot of folks, by the way, both black and white, first of all, defending the fact that, well, it wasn't really cosplay and it wasn't authentic cosplay. So they were questioning the quality of Darian's outfit. And we don't know 100%. I'm not even sure myself if he was in cosplay attire when the incident happened, but he definitely looked like an anime character by the name of Samurai Champloo. But my biggest concern was the fact that people were quick to give reason and justification as to why this kid got shot. When they first reported this, the police changed their statement several times. And they said that he was wielding a sword at them and charged at them. And that is why they shot him 5 times. I had reported it because there was video on YouTube of an eyewitness who was at a gas station who witnessed Darian Hunt running, and she didn't see it, but she heard gunshots after she saw him running. So when I had put that on the blog post, I had gotten a lot of really nasty comments. And on my blog, I don't publish nasty comments. I moderate it very heavily. So if you say something very disparaging, racist, sexist, whatever, it gets deleted. Sorry, I'm not going to publish those comments. So I just allow people that actually had something to bring to the conversation to add commentary about that piece. But it was very quiet. I didn't see a lot of conversation happening, and that was not even just in the Blerd and Geek communities. That was just all over. But you know, now that video has surfaced showing Darian running away, now there's concerns about it. Now we're seeing other activists like Sean King now talking about it, and there's more reports being surfaced. So yes, I think the Blerd and Geek communities are involved in this, and I certainly am, but I do feel that there should be more that should be discussed, and we should be more involved in this. And I have not seen outside of the Blerd community, as far as like, you know, the Nerdist and Mary Sue and the mainstream nerd sites, I have not seen them reporting on Darian Hunt. But I have seen, and to give credit to those Blerd bloggers out there, I give credit to Nerds of Color, who picked up the story from Black Girl Nerds, and I give credit to Black Nerd Problems, who wrote a story about it. And then there was another blogger out there, which I apologize, I forgot your website name, but she had also written a piece about it. But all of these bloggers, by the way, are, you know, Nerds of Color. So, you know, we're out there, but I do feel like there should be more of an effort put out to make this more something that we should be more aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I say, add to that question that was asked to us? One of the things I think we have to remember, we use these obscure terms like involved and movement, and we have to clarify what that actually means. You know, involved can mean different things to different people. You know, as Jamie so eloquently pointed out, she was heavily involved by reporting these, getting the word out. You know, involved doesn't just mean, at least in my opinion, and people can, you know, disagree if they want. I don't think involved always means protesting or dying in or rioting. Involved can be donations. I know I've given to some of the charities. It can be getting the word out. We report to SIF News every week. I know we've covered some of these issues at length, and you know, some of us are on Twitter getting the news out almost, you know, for hours a day, just retweeting and getting the word out. So I think that the main thing is that everyone's engaged, and involved can be to your level of, you know, what you're able to do. So I think that's the big thing. You know, as far as being in past movements, I think some of us have been to everything. Personally, I used to be with the FOI and all of them guys, so that's my background. But that's a whole nother discussion. So I just wanted to clarify that for the questioner, that, you know, we have to be, you know, because and I think it's important on my last point, because there's a Twitter beef thing that happened a couple days ago with you know, Azalea Banks and And
Oh my
you
god.
know, and
Gosh.
even though it seems stupid and it seems a little too lowbrow for this discussion, the big issue was whether or not people have to get involved, or whether they, what is involved. For all we know, Iggy, or whatever her name is, she could have been giving money to the cause. Maybe she's not out there like Macklemore or some of the other ones, but we just really don't know. So I wanted to clarify this involvement thing, so we're not also shaming people because they're not out in the
Oh
they're
yeah.
not out in the cold, or if you're not out there in the street, then maybe that's not being involved.
Yeah.
Because that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, I like to point out, like, trust me, I'm far be it for me to be the hugest Iggy Azalea fan. I didn't want to say it on Twitter because I know how Twitter is when it comes to Iggy Azalea. You say anything that's net positive about her in some sort of way, people will jump on you like, what are you talking about? So I'll say this. I really think people shouldn't expect her to really be at the forefront of this. Like, she doesn't, let's be real about this. You don't really have to say anything, and I don't know why people look to celebrities to say something about it, especially white celebrities. Like, I don't expect Iggy Azalea to say nothing about it. And honestly, I don't want her. Unless she says it out of her mouth herself, I don't want people, I really feel people shouldn't press her about it until she says it. Yeah, Macklemore came out and did it. Bravo on him. Cool, fine. I just think people really shouldn't just expect her to do it because, oh my God, I got personal beef with her because her raps. I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
Barring that though, at least for me and D and stuff, a lot of us in terms of being involved is just more so informing people because we got friends on Facebook that really don't understand the situation. So for them, they've, at least on D's and some of his white friends have said a lot of ignorant stuff, and he's had to school them and break it down to them and so they can understand it. So I was like, okay, good on him. Because me, I'll say my piece on it and stuff, and it's like, you know what, a lot of other people are saying it, so I'll chime in every once in a while and stuff like that. But it was kind of cool that D actually went out there and said, hey, look, it's bigger than what you think it is. This ain't just black people saying, oh, it's racist. No, trust me, it isn't. It's cool because some of them actually got it, which I thought, okay, we got a win here. Some people are actually getting it now, And it's kind of a shame that the cosplayer didn't get that much publicity too, because I think that's something nobody is talking about. And again, it got swept under the rug, and it sucks because, from what I'm understanding, he got shot for no reason.
Yeah.
Zero.
I want to go to King
Let
Face.
me-
I want to go King Face. King Face. I was just about to come to you. I got a question for you, but go ahead and make your statement.
Oh no, I was just gonna piggyback on what everybody else said. I mean, I know what you was talking about with the Darren Hunt guy, and we think we talked about it on our show pretty much right around the time it came out because we saw it on a news report. And the first thing I saw was a guy dressed up like the guy from Samurai Champloo get shot in the back, and it was like, whoa, cosplay, really? And to me, I was already suspect. And I know you got to wait for facts to come out to go all in, but at the time it came out, there wasn't a lot of facts. We talked about it on the show, and there was also there's a couple other cases that we could just talk about for days. The guys in New Orleans and Arkansas, the two kids that got shot in the back of the cop car with their hands behind their back after being frisked, and then they got told that they did a Houdini act and shot themselves in the chest. I mean, there's so many cases that this should be talked about. And I think informing people, I think being part of the solution is to talk about these things. I mean, I talk about it with people in general all the time. And I think some of the things that happen is we get so caught up in only discussing it in social media because there's a sense of empowerment there. But you wouldn't do it in your everyday life. There's like some people take on a persona in their social media that they wouldn't do in their everyday life. And I think that has to change a little bit. I think if you're going to say it on social media, if you hear somebody say something crazy at your workplace, you should dummy up and say it there. Some people won't do it. I've been doing it. I normally don't speak like that at work, but when I hear people comment, if they say something I think is dumb, I correct them in a way that's as respectful as, at least it's respectful enough for me, that it won't be so confrontational, but you talk about these things. I think one of the things is a lot of people seem ignorant, but they're not informed, as the other panelist said. Some people just aren't as informed as others, or they haven't had to deal with some of the problems that we deal with on a regular basis, so they don't see it as a big deal. And having that conversation with people on a regular basis, I think will go a long way. I mean,
King Face.
social media can reach a lot of people, but it's so much you can only do.
King Face, this sounds like you're talking about Charles Barkley. I'm just saying.
Uh, that,
I'm just actually that's why I want to ask you. Face, you're one of the people who are great about calling people out when they don't do what they're supposed to do. Do you think the celebrities, play a role in this because they have such a large following, and they have, a lot of ears? Face, do you think that we should look to celebrities, that celebrities should make statements, they should come out in support of these kind of things to help bring attention to them, or if they just don't know enough, they should just continue to stay quiet?
Listen, I don't think there's a black and white answer. I think it's a combination of both. I mean, there's been celebrities who've gone out there and tried to do their piece and they get torn up. And on the flip side, there's celebrities that don't say enough. I think if you in the public eye and you do have some sway, I don't want to use the word you're responsible to do these things, but you should go out there and say something. But if you're not used to saying anything, I'm not going to hold you accountable. I'm really not, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be just about you as a celebrity. We can only look to our celebrities to help us move forward. I think they have a good voice because they can reach a lot more people than the rest of you guys can. So I just think I don't really get upset if I don't hear somebody say anything.
I don't think, and just to chime in for a second, I don't think we should really be looking to celebrities to take that position. If they do, that's fine. But these are entertainers. Their job is to entertain. These are not role models. I mean, I think part of the problem is our society has put the wrong people in positions to be role models. We have the wrong idols in our society. It makes no sense that the garbage man makes more than teachers do. So we should, as a public, not really look to them to do anything but their job, which is to entertain. It is our responsibility to uplift and change minds, not a celebrity. We're talking about people who are, and this is not to disparage anyone, but, some of them have drug problems. Some of them are, barely functioning, individuals in society. It makes no sense to look at these people as role models. That's like going to the garbage man and saying, hey, why aren't you saying anything? Like, granted, he doesn't have the audience, but it's the same parallel. Like, that's not in his lane. Like, let them be entertainers, and let's, as a people, move beyond that.
yeah.
So go ahead, Donkey Conius.
I think it's classic that I always follow up when Potbelly makes a point. I don't mean to, but I happen to believe, and I think King Face made a good point about there really is no right or wrong answer here. I come from the school of thought, though, that if you have that platform, I do believe there is a social responsibility to a degree. And if you hear some of the things that Harry Belafonte say on this subject and some of the back and forth he's had with Jay-Z in the past, is that, these are people who can reach masses of, the young people that others cannot. Those that are always consciously aware, that's part of the quote unquote movement, can't reach the numbers that some of these celebrities go to. And I think we make the mistake when we think that just by saying that a celebrity or someone with an audience should speak out, that we're asking them to be a leader, or we're asking them to be a PhD or whatever, articulate on the matter. It can be something as simple as Derrick Rose wearing the I Can't Breathe t-shirt, or the St. Louis Rams coming out with the hands up gesture. It's just a show of solidarity, because even for those who don't know what's going on, just seeing those things from their favorite celebrity or sports team, that might have them look into it and try to find out what it's all about. So I think if you have that type of follower in that audience, I think it is kind of incumbent, because you got to remember the very people that support you are the people that's most affected by this in a lot of cases.
I don't disagree with that, and I applaud. I applaud Harry Belafonte. I had the great honor of meeting him a couple of years back. Wonderful human being. I applaud the position that Muhammad Ali took and literally risked everything, got stripped of his title, and got sent to jail for his beliefs. And I respect the hell out of that. And I applaud any celebrity that takes a stand. I applaud the work that Sean Penn has been doing for years, his work he's done in Haiti, and all of those things. However, I don't have an expectation of them because they have that audience. I think it's unfair for us to place an expectation on an actor or an entertainer to move outside of that arena. If they are so moved and they're willing to risk themselves, I believe that they are worthy of praise for doing so, but there should not be an expectation on us for them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanna ask a question around that. When we talk about entertainment, there's a question that we've talked about on the Black Geeks a number of times, and I want to throw it out to our guests because I think it's really important. And I'm framing this around, and don't everybody fall out at the same time. I'm framing this around the controversy with Exodus right now, and and a lot of what we're talking about with in terms of this movie called Exodus is imagery and the media's control of imagery and the imagery that is presented either in a positive or negative light. And a lot of times, the imagery that we're seeing about people of color and then that's of many different races and backgrounds is often negative. It's sometimes subtle. Sometimes it's very mental. It's very subjective in the way that a lot of mainstream media and media in terms of television and movies. And we are always talking about, for the longest time, Darky Coney has walked around. Yeah, I want my Black Panther movie. You see Darky Coney's at the store. Coney's, how you doing? I want my Black Panther movie. How you doing? And so now it looks like we're going to get it. So I want to go to Jamie, and then I'm going to go to Big Swivel. How important is it in terms of imagery that mainstream media is controlling the image? How important is imagery in all these different venues and the control of that imagery? How important is that in this day and age? Oh, Jamie.
Oh, was that question for me? I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're the only Jamie on here. It's all right. Yeah, Jamie. How important is imagery?
It's very important. Representation matters. It really matters. We have to really take note of the fact that the images that are fed to us on a daily basis have a great deal of impact, and it cultivates who we are and who we become. So Exodus was wrong in so many ways. Obviously, the whitewashing was a huge part of that. Whitewashing isn't anything new. The Ten Commandments did it with Cecil B. DeMille's depiction. And biblical movies at large are notoriously known for whitewashing. So I don't think that has really been the issue that struck a chord with people for the most part. I think, and it speaks to your question about representation and images, is the fact that the Black people and the people of color in the movie are slaves, servants, and
assassins,
thieves,
yeah.
and assassins.
Incredible.
So that's the problem that a lot of folks on Twitter, I will say, had with the film. And yes, of course, whitewashing was a huge part of it, but that aspect of it really got under people's skin. So when we're in this society where we don't even see a lot of images of Black people, and the images of us, especially on the reality TV front, are depicted in a negative light, what's happening with Exodus is just even more an insult to injury. And we really need to focus on projects, movies, TV shows that are depicting positive imagery of Black people. I just moderated a Twitter chat with the director of Beyond the Lights and their production team. And I think that movies like that are what we need to be focusing on and supporting and going out. And I think the Beyond the Lights conversation is very important to bring up because the director is actually using social media as a way to promote the film in a way that I really haven't seen other directors do, which I think is very phenomenal and quite brilliant of her to do that. But she's moderating and participating in a series of chats using Twitter to engage and to bring awareness to her film. And I wish her all the best. I really hope that people go out and see it and support it because there's just not enough images of Black people doing, living upward mobile lives, living the lives that we just live on a daily basis. It's not even something that's unique or significant. Like just us being us, we just don't see that. We always have to be you know, the bad guy, the villain, someone who is, you know, there's some sort of oppression that's happening. And a lot of the films that get nominated for Academy Awards are slave movies. And for some reason, black oppression, that is what is noteworthy in films, and not films that are about, you know, like the Love Jones movies of the world. So that's what we need to see more, and representation is very important.
She said she mentioned Nia Long. She mentioned Nia Long.
Calm
Steve, I was
down.
doing fine. Hold on. Let me
This is
turn
a
this on
serious
real quick.
discussion. We can pick this up on the
Okay.
Black
I'll ban you from here.
No. Yeah. But Jamie, let me ask you before I bring Big Swivel in this, and I'm gonna get you also on this question in a minute. But Jamie, do you feel that because we're not portrayed in some of these ways, we're not portrayed in some of these positive ways, do you feel that it's incumbent upon us as black broadcasters? Do you think that it's on us now to try to bring these images up? Is you know, are we carrying that mantle now?
I think the Blerd community is doing things that actually haven't. I think we are carving into new territory right now, because we are involved in so many things that are incredibly diverse. And doing shows about black role players, doing a show about black women in heavy metal music, breaking down stereotypes and just crushing them to pieces is the steps that we need to take to really have people see that, you know, we're not a monolith, that there's more to our blackness than this very small sliver of what the media choose to represent us as. Which, for me, I've said this argument many times, I feel like it's a form of white supremacy when the only images that you see of black people are negative, bad images, and it paints us with a broad brush. So, you know, we have to be able to take the responsibility as podcasters, bloggers, content creators, to create images of us that are actually real life images that are happening every day, but they're marginalized and they're suppressed, and we just don't see it. And we need to just bring that representation to the fold.
Right. I want to bring Big Swivel on this, and then I'm gonna go to CJ. Big Swivel, to this conversation on imagery. How important do you think it is now? I mean, especially when you have major media outlets running around here talking about post-racial, which I think we've already said in the Black Geeks, we want to ban that word altogether. How important do you think that it is now that we have ownership of this imagery, and that imagery, we hold these people accountable when this imagery is not correct, when does not match historical timelines or is beneficial to the image that we should be portraying of our culture and our people?
Well, I know that it's hugely important for a number of reasons. Number one, like Jamie was saying, you know, it perpetuates white supremacy. I mean, because if you're not shown the role, your true role that your people and your culture played in history, how can you have any idea of the role that you should play today? I mean, you know, we need to see that we were there. We need to stop the whitewashing in terms of the Exodus movie. And I was particularly troubled when Ridley Scott responded to the question about the whitewashing.
Oh,
I think
yes.
that was the most troubling thing. I mean, so all notions, any notions that we have of a post-racial society definitely goes out the door when you hear a director talk about the economic realities of trying to get a biblical movie made with people of color in prominent positions. I mean, that's just a huge thing. And definitely the positive role models are needed. I mean, obviously we have a slew of reality TV, you know, most of them get shot here in Atlanta, and people really think that, you know, black folk in Atlanta act a fool and black people act a fool in general. So yes, we definitely need to have strong positive images, you know, created, sustained. You know, we got our Black Panther movie. I mean, you know, we have the show Blackish, which I think is really refreshing and is a non-stereotypical, you know, black family, so to speak, that we've been seeing these past few years. But they actually poke fun at a lot of the stereotypes, which I think is really, you know, positive. I know a lot of my white friends actually watch that show, and it actually has made us have a dialogue about a lot of, you know, racial issues, if you will. But again, I think that these images are hugely important, you know, starting with having, you know, the cartoons, you know, going into, teen movies, going into action films, all of those things. Everyone needs to see themselves represented in a very positive light. Otherwise, you will not necessarily think that you're important, or at the very least as important as everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. CJ, and just to let everyone know, we're getting close to time. We may just go a few minutes over because I didn't give it a hard time start. And I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to give a closing thought. I want to jump to CJ in talking about this conversation of imagery. What you guys do on your show, you guys talk a lot about your movies and television, and especially comics. What do you feel from your perspective? There's a crazy echo. Just let somebody know, please. Anybody who's broadcasting their mic, there's a lot of echo. Um, see, TJ, from your point of view, imagery, how important is it, and what changes do you feel need to be made in the current? Oh, CJ was there. Okay. What do you feel changes need to be made?
I think in terms of imagery of black people, I think there already is kind of a change, and it's mainly on the side of, I've seen a lot of web series. I've seen a lot of people kind of do web series with, majority black, cast and stuff like that. And I think that is bore out of the fact that, one thing I didn't, really realize is that there are a lot of pilots that get pushed in Hollywood right now, and you got to figure there is a good chunk of them that maybe are based on like maybe a black lead character, or maybe all black cast that maybe don't get made and stuff. So I'm feeling as though people doing web series is going to be kind of the start of maybe a build up towards us seeing that kind of diversity in TV and such. I guess coming from a comic perspective, you might see more people, you might see diverse characters and stuff. I just from what I read and stuff, I feel as long as you're not pushing it for the sake of, well, we got to get a black character just for the sake of it and stuff, as long as it's not in that mindset and you're doing it because it makes sense and you want to do it, that's fine. I've always been like a proponent of that. It's kind of like the reason why I was like, okay, black, Falcon as Captain America, I thought it worked because it was kind of a natural progression, because much like Bucky, you figured at some point, well, if Steve doesn't do it, Falcon can do it, fine, I'm cool with that. It didn't seem forced. As long as, my whole thing is, as long as nothing is forced, then everything can be good. I really feel we have a long way to go in terms of diversity in network TV, because, actually not even TV, movies, period. Again, I also see there's an improvement on the movie end because black movies are starting to make a lot of money now, and I think there's also that whole thing of, the whole narrative of, oh, well, not too many people are going to watch black movies, which proven wrong and stuff. And then now everybody's putting that other area of, well, these movies need to start making X amount of money, which I'm like, okay, that's a little unfair, because why should a movie like, say, like the, About Last Night remake? Good movie, very good movie, and I think it actually did make a pretty good amount of money, actually made its budget back and actually profited and stuff. But I don't expect that movie to make like $200 million, worldwide or anything. It's a simple movie. I don't expect that. So
CJ, I'm sorry to cut you off. We're getting close to time, and I want to give everyone an opportunity to say kind of their final piece on this conversation and give a quick summary. If everyone, I'm going to call individuals, if you could just kind of give a quick summary, final words, final thoughts that you want to give to everyone and for the recording, and let us not forget this is on YouTube, so it's forever, whatever you say. All right, so I'm going to start with Jamie from Black Girl Nerds. Jamie, final thoughts.
We just have to stay diligent and consistent in spreading the word and the message about what's happening in our community, and to just not, don't let other folks compromise your integrity when it comes to speaking out about what's happening with Eric Garner, what's happening with Mike Brown, or just any sort of issue that's happening right now. I mean, we haven't talked about Bill Cosby's situation and rape culture, but that's also a pressing topic. So just just make sure to speak up, and don't be afraid to speak up, and know that there are spaces on the interwebs that will support you. And if you are someone who's a writer who is just getting started, or if you are someone that you want to give your voice to a podcast, don't be afraid to reach out to folks, because that we're all in this together, and each of us try to do our activism in different ways. And I like to do what I'm doing by having a website, an online community, and a podcast to give people a voice. So don't be afraid to reach out to me if there is a pressing issue that's affecting either you personally or that you feel that the Black community needs to know about. I am definitely open to editorials on my site, and to also have you have a discussion on the podcast. And I think other content creators should also have that open dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. Big Swivel, man, thanks for joining us. Final comments.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the experience. Just want to say a few quick things. I mean, the important thing is that we maintain the momentum with all these different, movements that are happening. I'm very excited, that young people are engaged, older people are engaged, that everyone is galvanized, but we need to continue the pressure in order to actually create the kind of change and to have the kind of world that we actually want. The big thing is that it doesn't matter if you are on the social media hashtag side of things, getting the information out, or if you're on the ground. The other big thing is to just mentor. I know, like myself, I mentor a lot of younger people and try to tell them different ways that they can get involved in it, empower them to say, hey, you all are going to be coming behind us, so you're going to run the world. So you need to try to enact the kind of change that you definitely want to see.
Thanks, appreciate it, Big Swivel. CJ, final thoughts, and then I'm gonna go to the Black Geeks for a wrap.
I think going forward, as long as people, also just going back to the whole, to the beginning, and stuff, is I think as long as we do diligence on keeping up this whole thing, the protests and stuff, I see good things coming out of it. I'm hoping that it doesn't peter off. On that end, at least, like I said, just keep hope alive and just hope everybody just does their job and just keep it up on the news and just keep informing people and just keep the conversation just rolling every day, even if it's just something small. You just keep the conversation going. If all these talk shows on CNN and all that stuff, if they can keep the news cycle going on this, I think we have a responsibility and stuff, especially since we're using social media, to kind of push that narrative forward as well and stuff, and just keep it going and stuff, just so that the narrative isn't getting twisted in any sort of way. So that's just my final thought on it.
I appreciate that throwback to Keep Hope Alive. That's a nice throwback. Appreciate that. Your illustrious King Face, final thoughts, Your Royal Highness.
No, I'm just going to echo the same statement. We just keep talking about it, keep on pushing on it, and not ignoring things that we see. Not being afraid to speak up on certain topics, because some people say, "Oh, well, it's done talking about that," or "We need to let that go. We need to move forward." I think we need to constantly just keep pushing the issue and do the best we can to move things forward if we can. Even like I said, if it's something small as just constantly talking, or just being there to supporting other people who want to talk about these things. I think we just got to keep it going on, keep the cycle going, and not letting it die.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You definitely don't want to let it die. Potbelly Samurai, final thoughts, my brother.
I'm actually very hopeful, like the level of activism that's come out and the support, and on multiple levels and in multiple arenas, from taking it to the street to taking it to the economics, with the impact that Black activism or activism in general around these incidents has had on Black Friday and the like. I think has made me very hopeful, and I'd like to see that to continue. But I'd also like to see the conversation expand beyond the incidents that took place, but also go into the arena of what's actually taking place in our communities on a daily basis, and what we do to each other, and the imagery that we continue to promote through use of language, and African Americans still using the N-word and things of that nature. I want us to continue this line of reasoning, but also start to apply that to how we interact with each other and how we either build or destroy in our own communities.
Oh
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And lastly, my illustrious co-host is Darth Scythianus, Darth Geekonius. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first off, thank you everybody for being on. It was a great discussion. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to say, images, again, like we said, is very important. In order for us to change part of the paradigm and how we're being perceived, we're not called, big demons with the strength of Hulk Hogan. We need to be very active in ensuring that we are engaged in how the media represents us, how we define who we are. And also, I wanted to say that I hope things move forward, but I hope that we have a plan. I don't want this to just fall apart like, some of the other hashtags that we've been following over the years. We need an action plan. I truly believe that one of the failures of events like the Million Man March and other things was that there wasn't a plan. You get your anger out, you protest, you do different die-ins and things like that. But what's the plan? What are tangible, substantive things we can do to continue forward, such as getting out to vote? I don't want to take too much time, but Ferguson is a 60+% black community, but the whole government is practically white. And in this last election, we only had like 42% voter turnout. So we had to think of substantive things that we can do to move things forward outside of just venting our anger and showing the world that we're upset, because we got to give these kids something to do after the discussion is over, so they can actively move the movement forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, as a moderator, first, I really want to thank you guys. It means a lot, not only to us as the Black Geeks, but I'm really hoping that as this video is shared to people, that it's going to touch people and it's going to motivate people. To CJ saying, keep hope alive. Hope is the sustaining, if you want to call it emotion or a sustaining element in us as human beings that propel us forward. Hope is what gets us through the darkest hours when you don't think you can, and it looks as though the system is against you and the world is against you. Hope is that one thing that pushes you over the edge and gets you over that hill and over that mountain to the other side of the mountain, to the mountaintop, if you will, and do my own throwback. But I really appreciate you guys, because what we did today, I feel, is important, and it is part of the struggle. It's part of the movement, and it is our contribution. So I really appreciate all of you guys. Just to let the listeners know, for those who are still with us on YouTube, the Black Geeks, we have our normal show at 10 o'clock. So we're actually going to flip really quick out of this show, and in about 5 or 10 minutes, folks are probably gonna get bathroom breaks, and then we're gonna start the Black Geeks radio show on Blog Talk. So if you follow us on Facebook or on Twitter at the Black Geeks, we're going to post the links there. And I think some of this conversation, because there are a couple questions I didn't get to ask, and so we're either going to start talking about those on the show, or we may even open up another time, another opportunity for people to participate. And I think if there's enough positive feedback, we may need to do one of these hangouts where more folks get to actually call in or dial in and be part of the same conversation. But I am infinitely grateful for all of you all and your time and your energy and your positivity and keeping that hope. And we'll see you again. Thank you so very much. I'm about to end the broadcast. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Everybody, everyone out there in the digital land, we are the Black Geeks. Can you see the shirt? Oh, can you see the shirt? Oh, it's inverted. There you go. There you go. It's on the website. It's on the website. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace.